Imagine picking up a book and realizing it already knows which corner of your inner world needs the most light right now. This book is organized into 8 distinct sections covering dark places, motivation, emotional pain, grief, self-doubt, fear, stress, and a meaningful life. Each section is a doorway you can step through whenever a particular struggle feels most urgent and alive for you. Rather than dropping a huge topic on you all at once, each section breaks its subject into several short, focused chapters you can actually absorb. The fear section alone gives you a chapter on making anxiety disappear, one on what makes it worse, and one on calming it right now. Bite-sized chapters mean you can pick up a single idea, practice it for a week, and come back refreshed for the next one. Understanding why you feel a certain way is only half the work. The other half is having a concrete tool to shift it. The low mood section starts with understanding and then moves straight into how to turn bad days into better ones, step by step. Knowledge and action are paired throughout, so you never walk away with insight but no idea what to do with it. Not everyone reading this is trying to fix themselves. Some of you are trying to help someone you deeply love through a hard time. A full chapter called How to Support Someone sits right inside the emotional pain section, written just for people in that caring role. Recognizing that love often means standing beside someone's pain, not just managing your own, makes this book unusually generous. The final pages include a chapter called When to Seek Help, plus references, resources, and spare tools you can return to any time. This book never pretends to be a replacement for professional care. It honestly points you toward more support when you need it. Think of everything here as a strong and generous starting point, not a ceiling for how far your healing can go. Grief gets 4 dedicated chapters: understanding it, the stages, the tasks of mourning, and the pillars of strength, because loss deserves that kind of space. Breaking grief into stages and tasks shows you it is not one overwhelming wall of pain, but a process with different rooms to move through. Even in the darkest chapter of this book, you are given something solid to hold and a direction to move toward. Picture a woman who walks into a therapy room terrified and full of doubt, and walks out a dozen sessions later believing in her own strength. The secret was not years of deep analysis, but simply learning how her mind works and being handed practical tools to use it differently. Knowledge itself is medicine, and understanding your own mind is the first and most powerful prescription you can fill. These tools are not reserved for people who are falling apart. They are life skills for every single person who wants to live more fully. You do not have to wait for a crisis before you start building the mental health muscles that will carry you through one. Anyone can use these skills to build resilience, handle tough moments, and find growth even in the most ordinary weeks of life. Think of your mind like your body. Eat well and exercise now, and your system is stronger when illness or injury eventually shows up. Practicing these mental health skills during calm weeks means you arrive at hard weeks already equipped, not scrambling to learn from scratch. The best time to build your toolkit is before the storm. The second best time is right now, whatever the weather looks like today. Knowing all the tools does not make you immune to life's difficulties. Even the person who wrote this book still faces hard days. What the tools do is help you notice when you have drifted off course and give you a way to find your way back again. That honest, realistic promise, not perfection but recovery, is far more useful than any guarantee of a problem-free life could ever be. Keeping up your mental health practice during good times is like paying a mortgage. You are building something that belongs to you. Stopping just because you feel fine is like quitting exercise because you are currently healthy. The whole point is to stay that way. Every quiet day you invest in these skills is a deposit into a reserve of strength you will one day be very glad you made. Short social media videos can spark an idea, but they cannot give you the full step-by-step guidance that actually creates change. This book exists to fill that gap, handing you the detailed explanations and real-life practice that a 60-second clip simply cannot hold. Important mental health knowledge should be available to everyone, and putting it into plain language is one way to make that true. Somewhere right now, someone is smiling at a dinner table while carrying a weight inside that nobody in the room suspects. Low mood often hides behind a bright face for years before the person struggling ever says a single word about it. You are not broken for feeling this way, and you are far less alone in it than the performance of happiness around you suggests. Your mood works like body temperature. It rises and falls based on what is happening around and inside you, and it can be deliberately influenced. This is one of the most hopeful ideas in mental health. Mood is not a fixed setting, and you are not helpless about how you feel. Understanding what turns the dial on your mood is the very first step toward actually moving it in a better direction. That feeling of dread on a grey Monday morning might have more to do with bad sleep and dehydration than with your life itself. Your brain is constantly collecting clues from your body, senses, relationships, and environment to guess how you should feel right now. That means mood is connected to everything: what you ate, who you talked to, how you moved, and even the quality of your air. When you feel low, pulling away from people and activities seems like rest, but it quietly tightens the grip of low mood. Skipping exercise because you are tired creates more tiredness, which creates less movement, which pulls mood even further down. Seeing this spiral early is what gives you the leverage to step off it before it gains too much speed to stop. Getting familiar with how low mood shows up specifically in your body, your thoughts, and your actions is where change begins. At first, you will notice patterns by looking back on the day. Over time, you learn to catch them as they are actually happening. That real-time awareness is when the real magic of change becomes possible. The gap between noticing and reacting grows wide enough to act. Managing mood is a learnable skill, and the more you use the tools, the sharper and more reliable they become for you. The goal is not to eliminate every dark feeling, but to have a well-stocked toolbox ready when the hard days inevitably arrive. These skills are not just for people diagnosed with depression. They are useful for every human navigating the natural ups and downs of life. Scrolling your phone, pouring a drink, or binge-watching TV all offer instant relief, and that is exactly what makes them so dangerous. The moment the distraction ends, the original feelings return, and each time they come back a little harder than before. Recognizing this loop is not about giving up comfort. It is about choosing strategies that actually move you forward instead of deeper in. When your mood drops, your brain starts mind-reading, catastrophizing, and seeing everything in black or white, all perfectly normal but all distorting. These biases are not a character flaw. They are shortcuts the brain takes, and low mood simply makes them fire more often and more loudly. Once you know their names, you can spot them at work, and naming them begins to drain some of their power over you. Every time you tell yourself, "I must never fail," you are setting a trap that guarantees you will feel bad about being human. Rigid rules like, "I should always be productive," pile extra pressure onto a mind already struggling under the weight of low mood. Striving for success while accepting that setbacks will happen is not lowering the bar. It is building a life you can actually live in. After an exam, feeling terrible is not proof you failed, but emotional reasoning will try very hard to convince you it is. Strong feelings can feel like facts, but intensity is not the same as accuracy. The emotion and the truth are two different things. Pausing to ask, what is the actual evidence here, is a small habit with surprisingly large power over how your day unfolds. Instead of diving into every negative thought, try stepping back and labeling it. That is my all or nothing thinking showing up again. Mindfulness, sharing your biases with a trusted friend, or even writing them down creates space between you and the thought itself. In that space, you can consider a more balanced perspective instead of being swept straight into the feeling the bias is creating. Low mood tilts your whole focus toward threat and loss, which makes every negative thought feel especially true and heavy. But feeling something very strongly does not make it accurate. The feeling and the fact are not always the same thing. Staying curious about your thoughts instead of accepting them as final stops the negative feedback loop from pulling you further down. Your brain is working with limited information and shortcuts, so the thoughts it delivers are guesses, not definitive truths about you or the world. Every thought is a mix of opinions, old memories, and hasty predictions, not a reliable report on what is actually happening right now. Understanding this one idea can quietly begin to loosen the grip that anxious or critical thoughts have over your feelings and choices. Metacognition means stepping back and watching your own thoughts, the way you might hold something at arm's length to see it more clearly. The moment you observe a thought instead of being inside it, you stop being driven by it automatically and start having real choices. This skill is the foundation under everything else in this book. See the thought, and you can begin to work with it rather than be ruled by it. You cannot stop a thought from arriving, but you absolutely can decide which thoughts get your time, your energy, and your focus. Trying to block a thought tends to backfire. The act of pushing something away keeps it right at the front of your mind. Treat your attention like a spotlight you consciously aim, deliberately pointing it toward what is actually useful and true for you right now. Rumination means replaying the same painful thought for hours, and research shows it is one of the key ways depression keeps itself alive. Every time you replay a painful memory, the neural pathway for it grows stronger, making it easier to trigger the next time and the time after that. Recognizing the loop early, before hours have passed, is when you still have the most leverage to step off it. When your mind is deep in rumination, thinking your way out is nearly impossible. Your body, however, is still fully available to help. Standing up, walking outside, or even just changing rooms can physically shift your mental state in ways that purely mental effort cannot. A trusted friend or therapist can also reflect back what they notice, building the self-awareness that interrupts the rumination cycle from the outside. Mindfulness is simply the practice of paying attention to this moment without judgment, and like any muscle, it grows stronger with regular use. Gratitude practice trains the same muscle, deliberately redirecting the spotlight of your attention toward what is real and good right now. Over time, these daily habits give you measurably more control over your emotional experience than you had the week before you started. Waiting for the perfect decision when you feel low is a perfect recipe for doing nothing at all, which only deepens the low mood. A good decision simply needs to move you in the right direction, even slightly. Perfection is not the price of admission for forward motion. Taking any small positive step today is worth more than the ideal step you are still planning 3 weeks from now. Low mood has one strong preference. It wants you to stay completely still and do nothing, because inactivity makes it stronger. Think of it like treading water in the dark. You have to pick a direction and move, or staying afloat becomes impossible. Any positive action, no matter how tiny, is a direct challenge to low mood's favorite strategy, and it always wins some ground. Setting a huge goal when you feel low sets you up to fail, which makes things worse. Pick one small change you can do every single day. Small repeated steps carve new pathways in the brain that grow stronger each time you walk them, making the change more and more natural. Slow, sustainable change is far more likely to last than a dramatic overhaul that burns bright for 3 days and then disappears. Self-compassion is not a soft indulgence. It is a practical skill that research shows genuinely helps manage and lift low mood. When critical thoughts appear, try asking how you would speak to a close friend in the same situation, and then use that voice on yourself. That honest, warm inner voice builds strength rather than shame, and strength is exactly what you need more of on the hardest days. Basing decisions on how you feel when you are low tends to keep you stuck, because low mood makes everything feel pointless and hard. Shifting focus to what genuinely matters to you, your values around health, relationships, and how you want to live, gives better guidance. Acting in line with your values, even during hard times, sends positive signals back to your brain and body and quietly lifts the floor. Imagine waking up and your problems have disappeared overnight. Now ask yourself what would be different and what small piece of that is available today. This miracle question exercise shifts your attention from the weight of the problem to the possibility of the solution. You do not have to wait for the problem to be solved before making the small changes that belong to the life you actually want. Exercise is not just good for your waistline. Science shows it raises dopamine and acts like a natural antidepressant at every level of low mood. It even makes antidepressant medication more effective, which means movement is not a nice extra, but a genuine mental health defense. You do not have to run a marathon. Any consistent movement that gets your heart going counts, and starting small is perfectly fine. Poor sleep makes every emotion harder to handle and every challenge feel bigger, and mental health struggles make sleep worse in return. Breaking that cycle is worth real effort. Morning light, a consistent wake time, and cutting caffeine after midday all make a measurable difference. Good sleep is not a luxury or a reward for productive people. It is the foundation that every other mental health skill is built on. What you feed your brain directly shapes how it feels. Research shows traditional whole food diets are genuinely linked to lower depression risk. You do not need a dramatic overnight diet overhaul. Just ask yourself each day what one small improvement you can make to how you eat. Small daily improvements in nutrition add up to a brain that is better equipped to manage stress, regulate mood, and bounce back. Routine is like the clear water in a glass. Add enough small disruptions and gradually everything becomes murky and unsettled. Lost routine tends to pull sleep, appetite, social contact, and energy all down together in one cascading chain reaction. Noticing when your routine is slipping and pulling it back, even partially, is described as one of the most reliably helpful steps you can take. Depression lies to you. It whispers to hide away and wait until you feel better before seeing people, but that wait can stretch into years. Good quality human connection changes your biology and psychology. Your brain is literally built to regulate itself through other people. Even small interactions, a smile, a brief conversation, being around others, can begin to shift the physical landscape of low mood. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, routine, and connection are your mental health defense team, and no one expects every player to perform perfectly every day. When one foundation slips, as will happen during a newborn's first weeks or a hard bereavement, the others can help compensate. The key is keeping them on your radar and making small improvements regularly, not waiting until everything feels perfect before you try. Motivation is not a skill you either have or lack. It rises and falls for every single person, and that is completely normal. Blaming yourself for low motivation is like blaming yourself for rainy weather. It was never yours to control in the first place. Understanding this stops the shame spiral and opens up smarter planning for the inevitable low-energy days that will come. Your brain is constantly monitoring your heartbeat, your breath, and your muscles, and what your body does can change what your brain feels. When you start moving, acting, or even just sitting upright, your brain picks up those signals and can generate feelings of energy in response. You have more influence over your motivation than you think, and the lever is often physical, not mental. Procrastination is not laziness. It is your brain reacting to the stress of a task by steering you away from the discomfort it triggers. Keeping yourself busy with other things feels productive, but if the hard task is still waiting, all you have done is delay the stress. Seeing procrastination for what it really is, avoidance, gives you the honest starting point you need to actually push through it. Anhedonia is when activities that once made you feel alive now feel completely flat and meaningless. It is different from ordinary procrastination. This loss of pleasure is a common feature of depression, and it makes it especially hard to do the very activities that could help you recover. Recognizing the difference between "I don't want to" and "I genuinely can't feel it right now" points you toward the right response. Waiting until you feel motivated before you act is a trap, because the feeling almost never arrives until after you have already begun. Think of leaving the gym feeling great even though walking in felt nearly impossible. Action triggered the motivation, not the other way around. Starting something, anything, sets off a chain of physical and emotional changes that build the momentum you were waiting to feel. Many people wait until they feel motivated before exercising, but the chapter explains that moving comes first and motivation follows after. Even a short walk or a few minutes of movement can shift your physical state enough to make the next step feel less impossible. Finding movement you actually enjoy matters too. The best exercise is the one you will actually do, not the one with the best reputation. When a goal goes quiet in your mind, it stops driving you. Bringing it back into daily focus keeps the energy alive. A minute or two of journaling each day to check in with your goals is a simple habit with an outsized effect on follow-through. Each reconnection moment triggers a small fresh surge of motivation, like striking a match to keep a fire from going out entirely. Trying to overhaul your entire life in 1 week is a reliable way to burn out and then feel worse about yourself than when you started. Choosing one small task and doing it consistently is how habits get embedded in the brain, so deeply they start to feel automatic. Slow change that lasts is worth incomparably more than dramatic change that collapses. Let the small steps build without rushing them. Being hard on yourself after a setback feels like it should drive you forward, but research shows self-criticism mostly drives depression instead. Shame makes people want to hide, avoid, and give up, the exact opposite of the resilience and re-engagement you actually need. Noticing how you speak to yourself after failure is the first and most important step toward changing the pattern for good. Treating yourself with kindness after a setback is not letting yourself off the hook. It is the strategy that research shows leads to better outcomes. Self-compassion after failure is linked to increased motivation and greater persistence compared to those who default to harsh self-criticism. The encouraging inner voice you wish someone else would offer you is the one you are fully capable of giving to yourself. Pausing to notice how far you have come, even a small distance, activates a sense of agency that fuels the desire to keep going. When you can see that your actions are actually influencing your situation, you start to feel like someone who can navigate their own life. That feeling of being in control, even partially, is one of the most energizing things a human being can experience during a hard stretch. Mindfulness gives you a pause between the urge and the action, a gap wide enough to ask, does this choice reflect who I want to be? Acting opposite to the unhelpful urge, the opposite action skill from therapy, is how you align behavior with your values even when emotions are loud. This small pause is not suppression, it is the deliberate space where your choices become genuinely yours rather than your feelings alone. Motivation comes and goes. The smarter move is to repeat a behavior so often that it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. Once a behavior is a true habit, you stop having to decide whether you feel like doing it. You simply do it because that is what you do. Building habits removes the daily negotiation with motivation and makes consistent progress possible even on the flattest, most unmotivated days. Starting something new is hard because your brain is forging a brand new path through unfamiliar territory. That effort is real and takes time. Under stress, the brain defaults to the most familiar route, so if you want the new behavior available then, you need to practice it now. Repeat the new behavior frequently enough, and that path becomes well-worn too, making it just as easy to access when life gets hard. When a big goal feels overwhelming, zoom out from the summit and focus only on the very next small step directly in front of you. Reaching each small milestone triggers a dopamine release, and that reward feeling pushes you naturally toward reaching for the next one. This internal reward system keeps desire and enthusiasm alive across the long haul that big goals always require. Not all breaks are equal. Scrolling your phone keeps the brain active and prevents the deep recovery that actually restores you. Real rest, fresh air, closed eyes, stillness, or gentle movement is what elite performers choose between sessions for very good reason. Protecting your downtime from the noise of screens is one of the highest return investments you can make in your long-term capacity. When you see a behavior as part of who you are, I am someone who moves their body daily. You do it even when you do not feel like it. Identity is not fixed from birth. You build it throughout your life through the actions you choose to repeat, day after day. Tying your goals to your identity means that a low motivation day becomes a bad weather day for a person who still goes outside. Big life change rarely starts with a clear answer. It usually begins with a restless, shapeless feeling that something is no longer right. That uncomfortable period of not yet knowing what needs to change is a normal and necessary part of the process, not a sign that you are broken. Sitting with the discomfort long enough to understand what it is pointing to is itself a courageous and important act. Einstein reportedly said that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 55 minutes understanding it. Therapy works the same way. Thinking deeply about your struggles is not dwelling on problems. It is the most efficient path toward actually solving them for good. Jumping to solutions before you fully understand the problem is why many attempts at change fail to stick. Metacognition is not just experiencing an event. It is stepping back afterward and thinking about how your thoughts shaped your experience of it. This skill lets you see your own patterns from a slight distance, which is exactly what opens the door to making them genuinely different. It is the cornerstone of meaningful personal change, not willpower, not information alone, but honest observation of your own mind. A journal is a private mirror. You write at your own pace, without pressure to make it perfect, and the patterns begin to emerge on their own. Over weeks of writing, you start to notice the same thoughts, triggers, and reactions appearing again and again across different situations. Seeing those patterns on the page gives you a kind of self-knowledge that is hard to build any other way without professional support. At first, journaling helps you reflect after the fact, but over time, you start catching your patterns as they are actually happening. That real-time awareness is the turning point, the moment you can notice a habitual response and genuinely choose something different. Change does not happen in the big dramatic moments. It happens in these small, ordinary flashes of seeing yourself clearly. Your brain takes in signals from your body and senses and uses old memories to construct its best guess at what you are feeling right now. The exact same racing heartbeat can be read as excitement by one person and terror by another. The emotion is the interpretation, not the sensation. Because emotions are guesses rather than facts, they are not fully reliable accounts of what is actually true about you or the world. You were not taught that you could influence your emotional state, but the truth is, you have far more say in how you feel than most people realize. You cannot directly choose every emotion, but you can take responsibility for your well-being and actively create new emotional experiences. That middle ground, between total control and total helplessness, is where all the practical tools in this book actually live. Fighting an emotion is like trying to hold back a wave. The moment you stop resisting, you get crashed into and swept under. Letting an emotion rise, peak, and pass naturally uses far less energy and causes far less suffering than the attempt to block it. Trusting that the wave will pass, because they always do, is a quiet but profound form of courage. When you treat your feelings as the absolute truth, they start controlling your future thoughts and actions like a chain reaction you never chose. Breaking that chain starts with one question. Is this feeling reflecting reality? Or is it filtering reality through the lens of a difficult moment? That question moves you from reaction to choice, from being driven by emotion to being informed by it without being defined by it. Instead of attacking yourself for how you feel, try getting curious. Ask what this emotion is telling you about what you need right now. Curiosity shifts your stance from self-judgment to self-knowledge, turning even painful emotions into useful information about yourself. This is the kind of compassionate inquiry that allows you to learn and grow even during the hardest and most confusing weeks of your life. Imagine walking through a forest and letting anxious thoughts arrive and pass without grabbing any of them, just watching them move through. When you stop fighting the tension and simply allow it to be present, it tends to pass on its own in a way that fighting never achieves. Welcoming emotions rather than suppressing them is a healthier, more natural way of moving through your inner weather. Mindfulness puts an amber light between feeling an emotion and acting on it, a small pause where you get to choose what happens next. Like an artist stepping back from a canvas to check that each detail fits the larger picture, you step back from the feeling to check it against your values. That pause is where life changes. It turns automatic reactions into deliberate choices aligned with the person you are genuinely trying to be. Your feelings are not your identity. They are experiences that pass through you and carry messages about what you currently need. When you turn toward an emotion with curiosity instead of shutting it out, you can hear what it is actually trying to tell you. Using that information to meet your genuine needs, rather than suppressing or acting impulsively, is described as especially powerful and valuable. Many people can feel the pounding heart but cannot name what they are actually feeling, and the name turns out to matter enormously. Learning words for a wide range of feelings, vulnerable, ashamed, grateful, wistful, helps the brain process and manage those feelings more effectively. Research confirms this also improves how you respond to other people. Precision in emotional language is a genuine social superpower. When emotions peak, positive thinking is nearly inaccessible. What actually works is using your senses to send safety signals directly to the brain. A warm bath, a familiar piece of music, a soft blanket, or slow breathing all work by reassuring the brain's threat system from the outside in. These dialectical behavior therapy tools meet you exactly where you are, not where you wish you could think your way to. A self-soothing box is built when you are calm, so it is already waiting with a ready-made plan for when you are not. Fill it with whatever genuinely comforts your senses. lavender oil, a photograph, a music playlist, a note to call one trusted person. Each item is chosen to remind a distressed brain that it is safe, and safety is exactly what allows the emotional wave to come back down. Research shows that people who have more words for negative emotions handle stress better and show lower levels of depression after hard events. Having fewer words to describe what you feel is actually linked to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and binge drinking under pressure. Building your emotional vocabulary is not just poetic, it is a measurable mental health tool with real consequences for how your life goes. Using a more accurate word for what you are feeling does not just describe the emotion, it actually helps the brain regulate it more effectively. The precision of the label reduces the physiological stress response, giving you a calmer system from which to face whatever is in front of you. Saying, "I feel overlooked," instead of just "I feel bad," is a small act of clarity that carries surprisingly large mental health benefits. You do not need a library card to grow your emotional vocabulary. Tasting new food, meeting different people, and watching films all do the same work. Every new experience shows you the world from a different angle, and each new angle can reveal a feeling you did not yet have a name for. Living curiously and expansively is, among other things, an act of deep self-care for your emotional and mental life. The feeling wheel is a practical tool used in therapy that gives you helpful prompts when you are struggling to find the right word. Keep it in your journal, write in the blank spaces with words that feel true for you, and reach for it whenever the right word won't come. Over time, the words you borrow from it become yours, part of an inner language that helps you navigate your own emotional life. Every repeated action builds a stronger neural pathway, and writing about positive moments trains your brain to access positive feelings more easily. This means journaling is not only for working through pain, it is equally powerful for cultivating and strengthening the good. Writing down even a small moment of warmth, beauty, or connection is a concrete act of building a more resilient and joy-capable brain. When someone you love is struggling, the urge to fix it is natural. But what most people actually need is far simpler than a solution. Showing up consistently, checking in regularly, and even sitting in silence together tells someone they are not facing this alone. Your steady, caring presence is not a consolation prize for not having answers. It is often the most powerful thing you can possibly offer. Compassionate listening without any agenda to advise or fix helps the person feel cared for, seen, and significantly less alone. Those feelings of being cared for and less alone directly improve the chances of recovery, which makes real listening a therapeutic act. You do not need answers, you need genuine curiosity and kindness, and those are already inside you. Supporting someone through mental health struggles can quietly and slowly deplete you if you do not actively protect your own well-being. Watching your sleep, nutrition, exercise, and social life, and getting your own support, is not selfishness. It is how you stay capable of helping. Setting clear personal boundaries is also a form of respect for yourself and for the person you are trying so hard to support. Having a simple crisis plan written in advance removes some of the panic from the moment when things become genuinely serious. Note the early warning signs, write down the steps to take, and list the phone numbers so you do not have to think it all through under pressure. A plan made in a calm moment is a gift of clarity you hand to your future, frightened self, and it costs almost nothing to create. Recovery from mental health struggles is not a straight line. There are good days, bad days, and that is completely and entirely normal. Expecting smooth, steady improvement adds pressure that the person healing simply does not need from the people who love them most. Being a steady, accepting presence through all the twists is one of the most profound and sustaining gifts you can give another human being. When ordinary tasks feel overwhelming, bringing a home-cooked meal or helping with errands is a concrete, tangible act of love. Notice the moments when your loved one might feel especially vulnerable, the first social event alone after a loss, and make sure to show up for those. Care expressed through specific, practical actions reminds people that they are held, and that quiet reminder changes the whole shape of a hard day.